Hello, this is Arthur Malman. I'm your host for this segment of GGG Insights. And today our guest is Debra Stein, who is the cantor at East Hampton Jewish Center, but also has a lot of other roles we find out in the town of East Hampton. Debbie, it's great to have you here. Can you tell us how you got to East Hampton, by the way?
Oh, absolutely. First, thank you for having me. So I got to East Hampton now almost 40 years ago, about 36, 37 years ago, because I was a student at the School of Sacred Music, and they put up a sign that there was an 8-week position during the summer for a student cantor.
Oh. 4
of us signed up. We each got 2 weeks.
Oh.
My luck was that I got the first 2 weeks, and I met the rabbi, and we did our first 2 weeks, and when I was done, I said to him, I'm leaving now. Your next student is going to come through. And he went, oh, no. I'm not breaking in a new student every 2 weeks. It's you or nobody. And I've been here ever since.
Well, that's terrific. And as a parishioner at the Jewish Center, I can tell you we all absolutely marvel at how great this has been. Both you as a singer and you as a person. And one of the things that you do is you're involved with the clericus. And a lot of people hear the word, but don't really understand what the clericus is all about in East Hampton. Can you just give us a little bit of background on that?
Sure. I am what we call the convener of the clericus, because nobody is willing to take a title higher than that. And what we do as a group, we are the houses of worship in East Hampton, from East Hampton, the whole entire, from East Hampton proper all the way out to Montauk. And all of the priests and the reverends and the rabbis, we all get together once a month. We discuss the issues around the community. We try to keep our finger on the pulse, make sure that everybody is healthy, make sure that organizations that should be helping are helping. We do our own, I think, very good work in helping throughout the community. And we learn from one another, and we create a feeling of brotherhood. We're all one people, and we all come to the table and try to learn and respect and understand each other.
What are some of the programs that you've done at the cleric, both in the past and right now?
Well, at one point we did give out a scholarship at the high school. We do a Thanksgiving service, an ecumenical Thanksgiving service. We do a baccalaureate service, which is when the seniors graduate, we pick one of the houses of worship and we do a service for them, or they do a service with us, is probably the better way to say it. And we honor them for what they've done, and we try to give them a spiritual lift as they move forward. And this is not done in many communities, and so it's very special that we do that.
Yeah, I've never heard of this before.
Well, it's really a very special moment.
Where was this year? Do you recall?
I want to say that this year I think it's going to be at the Jewish Center.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure because we circle around.
Right.
One of the jokes is that the newest member gives the sermon.
Oh, okay.
So there's always a charge. And usually the principal, Adam, will be there, Adam Fine, and he'll talk to them as well. Teachers will. We've begun doing it in a bilingual way now, so everybody can be involved. The choir of the high school will usually sing something, the band may play something.
Oh, wow.
So it really becomes a nice celebration for them.
Well, I was very surprised that, first of all, I guess almost 50% of the high school is now Latino, but I was happily surprised, as I'm sure everybody was, that the valedictorian and the salutatorian were both Latinos and outstanding kids.
Right.
I mean, just amazing. So that outreach has helped quite a bit. What are some of the other programs that the clericus does?
I think one of the my favorite things would be the soup kitchen. We do a soup dinner once a month during the winter, and it's all of the best chefs.
I'm saying this. When you said soup kitchen, I thought you were really not fair to this. I've been to this.
It's a soup dinner.
It's a soup dinner.
It really is. No, I'm not. It isn't fair to call it a soup kitchen. What we bring together all of the best chefs. I will say that somebody who's now left the clericus, retired, Doreen Quaranto from Most Holy Trinity. This was her baby.
Oh, she did a great job too.
She did an incredible job, just bringing together the best chefs and then gathering the breads and the cakes and the desserts, and every church and every house of worship brings something to the table, and then we get our parishioners to do the baking, and then we get people to help serve. And it's not for people who can't afford
No, that's
a meal.
why I said soup kitchen was unfair.
Right. It is for community building. We want people to sit together and realize that this community is so unique that we can all walk around town and recognize one another.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in a small town, but we didn't have a central place where you could actually really get to know people. And that's what we do at these soup dinners. And as they have grown, we now have people who play piano for us, or somebody might play guitar for us. And it's a place for children to get their community service.
Well, that was the other thing. I think you left out when you get there. You know, you see a place where you're supposed to pick up the plate, and all of a sudden this person essentially takes the plate out of your hand, and you say, "Oh, do you want? I'll get my own." No. This is a student from the high school who basically walks through, and serves you, gets you back to your seat, and everything.
Right. Well, it's actually we only let the adults serve soup.
Oh, really?
The students can serve the cold drinks,
Oh,
and
okay.
they can serve the desserts.
Okay.
But we want people to feel.
Well,
that
maybe
when-
this was a very young adult, so I thought she was
Yeah.
a student or something.
Or maybe I wasn't there. and I didn't catch the
Right.
16-year-old doing that. But we do try and keep the kids away from the hot soups. And they all take breaks. So even if they're volunteering, halfway through we'll say to them, switch, you go sit down and meet somebody, and we'll have somebody else.
I mean, I had a great dinner one time with Reverend Hansen. Dr.
Oh,
Hansen.
absolutely.
Yeah, I learned more about his library and everything else that he wants to get
Yeah.
after retirement and stuff like that. It was just terrific. Somebody I obviously wouldn't have had a chance to have dinner with or talk to except for that.
Right. We try to get all of the clergy there every time, and we try and get everybody seated at some point with somebody they don't know.
Oh, that's easy, yeah.
So, you know what? In the beginning, it wasn't as easy, but
Oh.
it's gotten to be that people are enjoying it even more and more.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's their only night out.
That's true, yeah.
And for them to be served a meal, as opposed to having to take their own tray, like a cafeteria style, we have little children who say, "This, you know, this is my first restaurant experience." And so it's a very special thing, and it creates a wonderful community.
By the way, the one thing I noticed, which I'm not sure how you take care of, is that as people get older, they have trouble driving at night.
I know.
And there were a lot of people who were helping other people by simply driving them home, which was terrific, I thought.
It is nice. You know, it's not something that we've actually gotten involved with, but
I don't
we
think you
do
can.
find that people create their own. We have people in Montauk who used to volunteer and can't come anymore, so we're trying to get them to get rides and be able to join us.
Well, what other program? At one point, I know at the Jewish Center, for example, we had Maureen's Haven, where people, women and men too, I guess, but mostly women, slept overnight and were given a hot meal and showers. And what does that program happen? Maybe
We're
it's not.
still
Maybe
doing
it's not
Maureen's
Maureen's
Haven.
Haven.
No, it
something
is
else.
Maureen's Haven.
Oh, okay.
It is still Maureen's Haven, and we are still doing it. Sarah Blue, one of our congregants,
sure, I know Sarah.
really runs it for us. We're doing it now at the Methodist Church because our space is not appropriate right now, given we used to use one of the houses and it's not the best place.
No.
So we use the Methodist Church, but it's our congregants who go, and what happens is that Maureen's Haven will send usually 15 guests to the church.
Right.
They'll come, they'll have hors d'oeuvres, they'll have a snack, they'll set up their beds, then they'll have dinner, then we might have entertainment for them, we might have a
right.
nurse for them, we might have a hairdresser for them to make them feel better. Then they have a beautiful meal, sleep, breakfast in the morning, always nice hot cooked breakfast, and then a lunch.
I remember you told me a story about a scarf one time that somebody knitted a scarf for somebody.
Oh, we get so many scarves that are knit.
You know,
Yeah.
and whoever got the scarf was overjoyed because nobody had ever knitted something for her, and she really treasured it in a way that, you know, obviously is heartbreaking.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing that there's still a homeless population, but it gets bigger, it doesn't get smaller.
Well, I'm involved with the airport, and I drove down one of the unpaved roads a couple of years ago for something, and I was sort of surprised to find that there was an encampment.
Yeah.
And everybody, at the end of the day, or the end of the night, really, took their bedclothes and everything like that and stacked them neatly and didn't cause a commotion. And it sort of exists, but it just never would have occurred to me had I not driven down
Right.
that there were people who lived in the woods in East Hampton.
Well, there is a homeless population, and they live in the woods, and they live in the green belts. I'm going to say the police do know where they are, and
Sure,
they're very protective of them,
Yeah.
and they're very kind to them. We try to get them in. Some people don't want to come in.
Right.
You know,
People
you
have
have
a
to
great fear.
wanna. Yes, they have a fear of leaving their things. They have a fear that somebody else is going to go into their encampment. They have a fear of something might get stolen when they come into the homeless shelter. So homelessness is an ongoing problem, and I don't see a quick solution, but I know that Maureen's Haven is really at the forefront of trying to get these people housing, because Maureen's Haven isn't really just about giving somebody a bed. It's about trying to get people back into a house. And so I would say over the years, and we've been doing it now,
It's been going on for a long time.
I'm going to say 10 years, maybe even a dozen years. And we do find that we can get houses for people. We can get low-income housing.
By the way, there was something I remember that most of the places that were accommodating people from Maureen's Haven didn't have showers.
None of them do.
That's the problem. You know.
That was the one joy of the Jewish Center. We
Yeah,
did have
the
showers,
showers, yeah.
and everybody was able to take a shower. Everybody does the best that they can do. So that is a problem. And there's nothing better than feeling clean when you're a homeless
right.
person. You know, to be able to put on clean clothing and to know that your hair is clean. That's why it's important that we bring them the services that they need.
Yeah. Well, when you said, hairdresser, at first I was surprised, and I realized what you're trying to do is change people's self-image.
Right.
And once you change their self-image, a lot follows from that.
Absolutely.
Now, what are some of the problems that, you obviously see both, you see a wide range of things in East Hampton, both the problems, the opportunities, and so forth. What would you say some of the major challenges we have for the next 4 to 5 years?
In East Hampton, major challenges.
I think you've alluded to one, which is finding homes for people who are homeless.
Right. And I think the cost of living in East Hampton is so high that even people, and I think people would be surprised, that people who are working 1 and 2 jobs still need help. And that's part of what the Clericus does. Individually and collectively, we help people who need financial assistance. We all have discretionary funds. We all have ways to help people, and we communicate with each other. So we could sit at a meeting and know that there's a particular person who we were able to help, and somebody else was able to help someone else, and so we keep each other in the loop. But yeah, I think that homelessness is a big problem. I think that the disparity between salaries and communities is another problem, and just keeping everybody above board, is a very important role that the Clericus does.
Well, I know we had Diana Weir on a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so ago, and Southampton, under her and Jay Schneiderman's pushing probably, has adopted a very forward-looking program to provide additional housing at modest costs. Something that I've had some real estate background, and we were very lucky to be involved with something called the Section 8 program, where the government basically gave you vouchers so people of different means could live in the same place without knowing who was being subsidized and who wasn't, rather than creating economic ghettos. And what they're doing in Southampton, and I guess we have some kind of a program like it, but not as active, is they're really making it possible for people who have a home to effectively create a second, smaller home on the same property, either attached or detached.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to get into all the nuances, but basically the idea was to bend the zoning laws so that people who wanted to could make living space available to other people. And if you want to take advantage of this program, you cannot charge more than X dollars. X dollars for a one-bedroom apartment, X plus Y for a two-bedroom, so that it was aimed at being able to probably offset the cost of supplying this unit, and maybe making a couple of dollars for the person who had it, but primarily providing places where people of limited means could have safe housing. Rather than trying to find a big spot and build 200 units that is going to be opposed by almost everybody in the community, even if it was on the
not
city.
in my backyard community.
I'm sure if it was on the dump, I'm sure there'd be people who would oppose it.
Yeah, you know, I would like to see the town of East Hampton do something similarly, but I don't see it happening. I think that they have a lot of regulations. One of the things that the Clericus does is we will have the housing department come and talk to us, so we understand the Section 8 housing and how it works. But that's going to be a difficult commitment from the town of East Hampton. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Well, you know, if you have people, as many of us do, who have people who work for us, and then you realize, gee, you know, we have a place over here that we can actually create another apartment without putting ourselves out. In fact, it might redound to our benefit, especially if you're a second homeowner. You're there on weekends. It's great to have somebody live on the premises, and you know, so that to me is a potential way to kick this program up a little bit in East Hampton, because the numbers I've seen them, they're just astronomical. They're astronomical for a person who wants to come here to live and doesn't have a father or a mother who are living here and give them the house. I mean, somebody said at one of our meetings, well, if somebody gets a starter house for $600,000, and somebody else yelled out, if you can find one of those, I'll take it, you know, because they don't exist anymore.
They don't exist. You know, I look at my own daughter. There's very little likelihood that she could ever buy a house out here. Not with her salary, not with her fiance's salary, and we need those people here. We need the social workers, and we need the teachers, and we need the maintenance men, and we need the people to work at Stop and Shop. I like what the initiative sounds like in Southampton from what you're telling me.
Yeah. Well, Manny Villar, when he was running for town council, woke us up to a whole group of situations, none the least of which were very surprising, that if you were a person who worked for the town of East Hampton and you were the sole support of your family, while you might be able to probably qualify for some low-income rental housing, you could not afford to buy a house under the criteria for for buying the house, because you were being paid too little to afford the starter house in East Hampton. I mean, there's something wrong with that picture. I mean, that was just something that was that swept us all away. Yeah,
I actually have been doing a lot of work on Section 8 housing in Nassau County more than in Suffolk County for personal reasons.
Sounds like you're a traitor.
No, but what you find, certainly in Nassau County, that the Section 8 housing is in really bad areas, and you don't want to put somebody you love in that area, and it's not easy to get Section 8 housing, and it's probably equally as difficult in Suffolk County.
Yeah. No, my experience was in the city of Seattle. It was 20 years ago, and we had a apartment building in Seattle's Chinatown, and it was primarily elderly people, and nobody really cared if the person next door to them didn't have as much money as they did. They knew that person as a person.
Right.
And that's the biggest difference.
And that's something that we hope through these soup dinners, that people will see people as human beings, and not as whatever they keep in their pocket or wherever they choose to worship. We're all the same.
One of the other problems we've had in East Hampton, and I say we because it goes way beyond the GGG, is getting Latinos to be more active in civic affairs. And it's sort of a catch-22 problem, because if you're working 2 or 3 jobs or working night and day, it's hard to fool around with the GGG or the Democratic Party on a Thursday night from 7 to 9 or whatever it happens to be. And yet, as a practical matter, if you're not involved in community affairs, certainly the political considerations of appealing to your group dwindle. And I know Bill Wilkinson, who has a checkered history in East Hampton, was really actively trying to get the Latino population more involved with the town. He went so far as to have the town departments set up literally bridge tables at the back of one of the churches to explain to people what was available, what was going on. It was very difficult. And
well, you're always welcome to come to the soup dinners and put out literature.
Yeah.
That would help the Latino community. But I think I also just read that OLA is now going to have a space on Main Street in East Hampton.
Oh, okay.
So I think that might be a good source, a good way to get into that community. But I know that we used to serve lunches at the railroad station for the day laborers.
Yeah, I remember that program for a while.
Yeah, it's still going on.
Okay.
We've just taken a step back from it, but it is still going on through, I think, the Episcopal Church at this point. They're working too hard. You know, this community is working too hard. They're not even stopping for lunch. So to think that they're going to come to a meeting is, you know, it's an unlikely.
I know that's really
scenario.
the problem, and also it translates to voting. One of the things that we've been very disappointed about as an organization is our ability to engender an interest in Latino people to vote. I remember I spoke to a woman who was working at the post office. So obviously, she checked all the boxes. She was a citizen. She was a nice lady. God knows, probably one of the best people there. And I said, "Have you voted today?" And she said, "No." I said, "Well, why not?" And she said, "Well, I come from, I've forgotten, it was Ecuador, Honduras, or someplace." And she said, "In our country, you don't vote, because if you do vote and you vote for the wrong people, maybe there's a fire at your house, and the votes aren't counted." And she went through all these reasons, which indicated to me, obviously, she came from a different culture. And even though she checked all the boxes, intelligent, hardworking citizen, or certainly here legally, you know, it wasn't high on her list.
I think you'll see a change. I think that tide is changing.
Okay, I think it's really important.
It's important for everybody to vote.
Yeah, well, it is, because you know, if I know the people in this neighborhood don't vote, and I'm a town official or a county official, maybe I don't spend as much time listening to their complaints, and it's really frustrating, because it's a circle.
I do think that you'll see that change coming sooner than later.
But Debbie, also another thing we've been starting to focus on a bit here in some of our conversations is the fact that the percentage and sheer number of older residents is going up in East Hampton. I think it's about 18% of the. From the cleric's point of view, what kind of problems are you seeing, or what kind of programs are there for the increasingly elderly, which includes me, or includes the person on the cane who's doddering around? And I'm going to do that sooner or later.
We all are.
No.
I don't know that we're doing enough at this point. I think that's something that we have to address. I think the biggest problem out here is the driving at night for the elderly. And so they really become recluse, especially in the winter months when it gets dark so early. But, you know, I was in Sarasota, and they had an adult education facility there where there were seniors coming in and out all day long. And I think we need something like that. We need to engage our seniors and keep their minds moving.
Paul Fiorandella was on our show. He's a member of the seniors committee. And he was very much focused on activities for active seniors. Obviously, there are some people who are frail and really can't get around and have limited ability to do many things. But there's some talk now about this building that was bought or is being bought by the town, the CDHC,
Right.
where maybe we can combine basically make it a community center where there can be courses made available to a whole range of people, from little bitty kids all the way up. And one of the things that Paul and others have pointed out is that we're very lucky in the town of East Hampton. We have a lot of people who have tremendous skills.
Absolutely.
And the person who was the head of the MTA or something in New York City, who's now retired, would be a fascinating speaker, or give an entire course on the city of New York and city problems and things like that. And I think what you're saying is very interesting, because people had said, well, they could go to the library, they could go to the Jewish Center for a Jewish class, but it doesn't really work that way. There's not one central place, learning center, or community learning center where everybody goes.
That's one thing that I've always felt in this community, is that there is a lot here, and there's a lot of opportunity for almost anything you want to do, but finding that central place where the information is, where the classes are, where things are happening, it's very difficult. And we have tried. We have a group that does that.
It's so hard, we're going to have to stop. No,
Oh,
Debbie,
what a pleasure.
Thank you so much, seriously.